medical doctor, you're a physician, you operate out of California. You're also a board certified medical doctor in Germany. You're a manual therapist as well as a psychotherapist. And not only that, you are one of the originators of the interoception awareness scale. Tell me a little bit about why you got interested in interoception.
Yeah, so the term interoception is more a scientific term for what I was interested in was body awareness. So my interest started when I had, as a young physician already in my late 20s, early 30s, I had for 3 years I had very miserable low back pain and sciatica and nerve compression and neurological deficits and felt like this can't be that I'm already a cripple in that age.
Right.
So I defied the recommendation to get surgery at that time and tried everything else possible. And what I claim, what did help me in those years was somewhat unusual, was breath work, was a therapy where they use breathing and breath awareness mostly. And I try to understand why can this work, or what is breath work? What is it? What are they doing? And at that time, the way these therapists who, they didn't mean to do therapy for patients. They were more educators. And I tried to understand what they were doing, and they couldn't explain that very well. And then I got this idea that what they do is they enhance body awareness. They
Mm.
train people. It's like Alexander work in England, or
Yeah.
Feldenkrais in Europe, otherwise, and yoga and Tai Chi, and they all help to train awareness of the body. And there was nobody talking about it, and particularly among physicians, the topic of body awareness was not a good topic to talk about because, physicians think when patients talk about all their symptoms they have, that's body awareness. And when they get depressed, they complain about body symptoms, they call it somatization in medicine and hysteria. And so doctors don't like the topic of body awareness. That's was the situation like 30 years ago. And I felt like, well, there is some benefit to body awareness, but nobody talks about it. And so I did at that time I did then first a dissertation, a medical dissertation on this breath therapy, what's they doing in Germany. And this finding, what came out was that yeah, they're not aware of increasing body awareness, but that's what they do. And
Mm.
it worked against their own they weren't aware of it, that this worked particularly well for back pain. That's what I had at that time. So I got very interested in doing some, and back pain, chronic back pain particularly, has very little therapeutic options in Europe or anywhere in medicine. Doctors are frustrated with these patients and they don't know what to do with them,
Mm.
feeling helpless. And this felt like this is such an important topic because I had suffered from it myself and was so unhappy with the medical system that I thought I should do something about it. So
Mm.
that's how I got interested in introception. And I learned, for example, that at some vacation I took a massage course for lay people,
Mm.
not for massage training, just for fun. And I worked at that time, I worked in intensive care in internal medicine. And I was always burned out and totally done at the end of the day. And when I did this massage workshop and gave massage to other people, they were all young people at the time, like me. It was fun. I felt better doing the work after the work than before the work. And that
Wow.
was the opposite of my experience in medicine work. So, and I felt like, oh, this is interesting. And then I got interested in this hands-on manual work. And then I learned, because of manual medicine, I did a lot of back pain patients.
Yes.
I, I kind of emphasized chronic pain as my topic of work. And then I felt like there's a lot of body awareness that they don't have, back pain people, and I didn't have, and I had to learn with this, what I understood as breathwork in Germany.
Mm. And so, was this the beginning of your idea around creating a valid and reliable scale, or was
Yeah.
it, yeah,
So I was thinking, there is I was interested in helping the community of providers of these methods like Feldenkrais, Alexander work, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, their mindfulness, breath work. They all think or they all have some clue about that they foster body awareness.
yes,
But how do you know? How do you know that this happens? How do you know that maybe an improvement in body awareness or interoceptive awareness mediates the effects, the health benefit effects of these interventions? And in order to show this, you have to put some measure in there. And being more on the psychotherapy side for that, I was thinking more of a questionnaire rather than objective measures, because objective measures are very limited in my view, and
right,
because it's like I compare it to when you look at a modern art painting in the museum, the clarity of your vision is not the point.
mm,
It's what you make out of this abstract art, or so how you feel about it, what's your emotions about it, and how do you respond to this psychologically to a painting rather than how clear is your perception of it. That's not the
exactly.
point in body awareness.
Yes, yes. And I'll ask this one question, and then we'll come back to something that you just said because it was very interesting. Um, Interception is often misunderstood or can be misunderstood. How do you conceptualize interception, just sort of as a
Yeah, at the
psychotherapist, but also as a
baseline.
medical
Yeah,
doctor?
yeah. Well, there is a formal agreed upon definition that's for all the researchers that sounds something like interoception is the way the body processes internal signals, bottom up, top down, interprets them and integrates them into its physiological functions.
Yes,
But it's a mid it's the mechanism or it's the I don't know the processes how mind, attention, awareness connects with or the with signals from inside the body, which are generally, I mean, there's no percentage, maybe 90% or so. They're all unaware. You're unaware of. So there's a mechanism, neurological mechanism that bottom up and top down regulations, how the brain connects to these internal organs and all the perceptions of how is your state of the body.
mm,
And then interoceptive awareness is then the small part that you can become aware of. But
yes. And you're saying some of that is sort of the majority is sort of below the level of consciousness. But what
yes,
we are aware of as I sit here and look at you and feel my back on
yeah,
the chair and my bum, that's that small percentage that
yeah,
I have in an interceptive awareness around right now in the
yeah,
moment.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And Dr. Mehling, how did your perception of um, interoception inform the scale? So when I look at the scale, there are several questions they structured differently, some of them the same, but then they structured differently. Do you want to say a little bit about the
Yeah,
scale? Why the number of questions? Why those questions as
yeah,
such?
yeah. So the that was a long, intense teamwork. So we, in several steps. So first we did focus groups with all these people who provide these interventions. So like representative, uh, kind of somewhat nationally known providers of these methods, bodywork methods,
Mm,
including yoga and Tai Chi and different forms of yoga and meditators and all the people where we thought that they enhance body awareness implicitly or explicitly. Got those people in the focus group together and asked them to say how they understand body awareness.
mm,
And what pretty much came out was that there's a developmental process. So there's different levels of body awareness or integration of interoceptive awareness that starts with like my own story. I take my body for granted.
mhm,
I do everything. I realized at some point that I'm walking around like somebody who has his body on a hanger for clothes. My head is everywhere and interested in accomplishing something, and my body is just moved underneath it. And
mm.
I wasn't aware of my body. And people usually just use their body as a means to accomplish some goals. So that's kind of the first level of body awareness where you take the body for granted and it's pretty much used but often ignored. And even if you do exercise like running or so, you often do that only for getting a certain aerobic benefit uh, or people, they sit on these machines and read and watch TV at the same time. They're not paying attention to their body. They're
Mm,
just exercising it. And then you get symptoms like I got my back pain, which was
mm.
really miserable and there's no way of really not dealing with it. And it's so then the body becomes kind of an obstacle all of a sudden, not just something you take for granted, but it's an object of perception and you feel miserable about it and I don't like my back pain and it's obstructing you in your accomplishing goals that you have in your mind. You're meeting all the expectations from the world and from yourself.
Yes.
And then after longer, particularly with chronic pain, if these situations stay on, this seeing body as an object that obstructs your activities, then at some point you might learn, oh yeah, maybe I should have taken care better of my body and to pay more attention and kind of focus more on, okay, if I run a little slower or if I use a foot where I get my middle foot rather than my heel on the street running, little things that you can kind of modify, then you become a little more friends with your body. So yeah, it's still and subject object
Yeah.
uh, this distance between it, but you get a little more become a little more friends with the body.
Yeah. That relationship, I think, changes. Yeah.
Changes. Yeah. And then the next step would be actually and that's what happens often with these interventions or meditation or Tai Chi or other methods, that you kind of learn that the body is actually a source of insight for you. So
Mm.
you can learn, uh, like there's this focusing therapy. I don't know if you know about it. There's
Yes.
a
Glendlin?
Gendlin, yeah.
Yes.
So there is this, and I use that as an example, usually say, when, okay, you are in love with two women, which one should you go for? And then you can feel into your body, okay, if I wake up in the morning with this one, how does it feel in my belly? And if I wake up with that one, how does it feel in my belly? So that's one of the methods they use. They use body awareness for
A bit of a
insight.
double bind, isn't it?
No, but you can make a decision
Ah,
based on body sensations.
I see.
And,
I see.
and so there is an informant, there's some intelligence
Mm,
in the body that can help you in decision making. And I think that's another state. And then you can think if you're another state in the meditators where the duality of body and mind, attention and sensations kind of merges into a presence in the body.
yes. Yes. Beautiful.
And these different steps, they happen over lifetime often, it's like people have to get sick first before they focus on body awareness.
Hmm.
And I even believe that the lack of body awareness can be as a reason for getting sick, because you're not paying attention to your body. So you have to integrate these signals, and all the Alexander workers and Feldenkrais workers, they would all, and yoga, they would all say, what you learn is you use your body as as your best friend, as an informant, or as your partner, or as being your body, which is a different thing than having a body.
Yes, that beingness. Yes.
Yeah, so that's how we came up with these different scales within the MAIA. And just noticing a body sensation, that's kind of the first scale, can be very ambiguous. Like if you have high anxiety, then you feel, cold feet, I'm sweating, my hands are cold, when I
Like
say,
an over focus.
yeah, and then that kind of feeds back into your anxiety and makes it worse. And so the noticing, for example, is not either good or bad.
Mm,
There's no benefit. It's not positive body awareness. So one reason why I wanted to scale is that because physicians years back, and some still, think being aware of your body is something they don't want to hear. It's not beneficial.
mm,
It increases anxiety symptoms, increases depression, increases catastrophizing, worry about the symptoms, being unhappy. So that 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 this noticing, for example, scale is not either helpful or not helpful. It's not benign, it's not beneficial. But then there's other elements in the scale that once you process more of the sensations and understand, okay, these are helpful signals. And then the last scale is then the one where you trust your body. So do you trust your body and there's body listening is another study earlier. Do you think that your body signals can help you in decision making, can
mm,
give you some useful information for your life?
mm,
So these are the different levels kind of are reflected. These different process developmental levels are meant to be reflected in the scale.
mm. Going a little bit of script from the some of the questions I sent to you. Can you talk a little bit about, because you're saying something really interesting. What I hear you saying is that, as we become more interoceptively aware, it connects us in our relationship to our body, what's happening inside. Bottom up process, we obviously have a top down. But what I
Mm.
hear you saying is that it also has an impact on certain sort of brain networks and structures. Am
Yeah.
I, do you want to just talk a little bit about that? Because from like being non-aware, someone wouldn't be activating, maybe some of that prefrontal cortex, insula, maybe
Mhm.
downregulation of the default mode network. Do you want to just share a little bit? Because it seems quite profound, like just the relationship. Like if we can just be a little bit more aware, there's actually
Yeah.
a lot of things happening that help
Oh
the
yeah.
brain and the body.
Yeah, so the brain research initially actually was done in the UK, by Critchley in London. And there's many labs now all over who do brain imaging and find that the whole connection of how mind and body are connected has to do with the development of a certain brain cortex area that we are pretty much as primate among primates, we have the biggest insular
Mm.
region, and the the structure of the anterior insula, for example, where you have the meeting of the prefrontal cortex, your conscious mind meeting body sensations from inside the body and interpreting those sensations, making sense of your inner body sensations. That's something that zebras and uh, horses and dogs and cats hardly have. They don't have that part of the brain.
Hmm.
So it's a evolutionary development actually
Wow.
that we have in the higher primates. Chimpanzees have that somewhat too. So there is a brain development that happened over evolution where the integration of body signals with your conscious mind has happened with this anterior insula and is connected then to the prefrontal cortex, as you said, where you can make decisions and you can direct your attention in certain ideas, yeah, certain
Mm.
goals. And the mid insula is connected more to the emotional network in the brain. So how do you feel when you, so do you feel good when you feel your pain? No, you don't.
Mhm.
Or do you feel all emotions have body sensation. So there's a strong connection that is not unique to humans, but the interpretation of that and making meaning, making sense of it, that's happening in the anterior insula. And that's special. Yeah. Is that what you asked?
Yeah, yeah, really, really helpful. And as a trauma specialist myself, it makes me think about, when
Yeah.
someone has, car accident or something terrible happens, a lot of time meaning is made in those moments of shock and trauma, right?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I was just thinking about what you were talking about, because if meaning is made to an interpretation of the signal,
Yeah.
this sensation feels bad.
Yeah.
And if that's the same sensation as anxiety or excitement, right? If it's then, okay, this sensation means anxiety, when actually it's just a sensation, but there's been meaning made, that can really skew mental health and obviously, increase symptoms. Is that your understanding or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition, with PTSD, the one of the common elements of PTSD is dissociation from body symptoms
Yeah.
and dissociations from your emotions, which are felt sensations.
Mm.
So if you don't want to remember your miserable situations that you have been exposed to in childhood, adverse childhood events, or war situations, in military deployment, um, then there's a protective mechanism that we have to try not to feel these things. So kind of dissociation is, if you're in war places helpful, you don't want to feel your feelings because you want to act and want to
Yeah. Adapting.
stand situation and yeah, and adapt to a miserable situation. And you want to be overly vigilant to what's happening out there rather than what's happening in there. And and these mechanisms are part of PTSD in the sense that they are actually in the situation that the trauma created are beneficial. But then people don't unlearn them for the situation where they don't have to be hyper vigilant and dissociate from the feelings. And so the one of the ideas of treating PTSD is learning that body sensations or focusing on body sensations, emotions, and just the physical body, just sensing it can help getting out of this loop in the mind, getting back into yeah, the body can give positive sensations. And so we did a study with PTSD patients, war veterans.
Mm,
And there are studies now that show that the adverse childhood events have a lingering effect on interoceptive awareness over decades.
mm. Wow, that's good to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Dr. Mehling, just coming back to your scale and putting that together, did you encounter sort of, any challenges while, creating the validity and reliability of the scale? Like, did anything come up that you thought, well, that's unusual, or was it pretty much hopefully plain sailing?
Well, there's the scientific community has inherent bias against self-report. So we don't,
Ah,
that's maybe an obstacle that
mm, mm,
there's the, we're thinking, well, if it's not shown in objective measures, like with a gauge or with some electronic instrument, then this information is is not believable or is not as scientifically sound,
mm,
not as rigorous, self-report. And then the problem came up that the self-report scale, the MAIA scale, when they put at the same time, like heart rate detection as an interoceptive measure, and do that as objective as possible. You report on how many heartbeats you have,
accuracy. Mhm.
and then you can objective measure it and see how that fits together. These measures never worked well they didn't show that they are showing the same thing. So the interoceptive objective measures didn't associate with the subjective measures. That was an obstacle that kind of at the beginning get irritated lots of researchers, because until we understood, well, these are just different things, that there's so many different
Mm,
dimensions to interoception and interoceptive awareness, that these objective single symptom items, measurements don't fit, then they don't work with interpreting or
right.
making sense of a sensation. So
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And sorry you had that trouble. That's fairly frustrating, having had the lived experience of pain and
yeah,
back
yeah,
pain,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then, from the inside out. Um, I, you know, in your view, how has the MAIA scale sort of proven impactful kind of so far, and why do you think that it is impactful?
Yeah. I have kind of esoteric opinion on that.
Go for it.
But, but I think that the human soul, human beings, there is an there is an inherent drive for being more aware of the body.
Mm,
There's an inherent tendency to integrate body and mind, to get beyond the duality of here's my head, here's my body, uh, to get to integrate that. There's an inherent tendency for more self-awareness. And that trend is showing up not just in my lab, it's just showing up everywhere. So why do people run for yoga? Why is yoga so popular? Now, mindfulness is one of very popular topic, gets bigger and bigger, and hospitals apply it. And in England, you have mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. They even try to put it with schools together in England. So it gains. There's a movement that happens without the questionnaire. It just happens.
mm,
And I'm just riding on a wave kind of with this questionnaire. The questionnaire just came at the right time for uh, being useful to the movement of humanity tries to become more self-aware. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very esoteric interpretation. I'm aware of that.
Absolutely fine.
But that's what I think. So I think it's it just science often wants to believe that we find something and that people go for it. I don't think that's how it works. I think we mostly behind what's the trends are in population anyway. So I just happened to be on the right time, got this grant from NIH to get this scale working, and I think that it was picked up everywhere. So many translations now.
Yes, yes, yes. And a question, just because you mentioned something really interesting. So trying not to go off script, but you said about kind of like mindfulness, and I'm curious
Mhm.
about kind of like, in your view, is there a difference between sort of like, mindfully aware, meaning present moment aware, and interoceptive awareness? Like, do you differentiate the two? Are there two
Yeah,
different things stimulating different networks in the brain? Like, what is your view on that?
yeah, it's a good question. So being aware of your body can be driven by anxiety, can be driven by hypervigilance, by catastrophizing, by pain, for example. And that is not necessarily mindful. So you be aware of your body sensations,
Hmm.
you process them, you interpret them, to understand them in some way, like I will be a cripple for the rest of my life. That's
Mm,
interoceptive awareness in some way. It's not very mindful.
mm,
So mindful is in an attitude of body awareness, of interoceptive awareness. Mindful is kind of mindfulness, how it relates. It's not only about the body. Mindfulness is about,
mm.
do I,
Interoception as well as
yeah,
interoception. Yeah.
perception, any perception, how do I enjoy the day? Is it, am I mindful to the sunshine and the warmth?
Mm,
And I mean, that also gets mediated by body sensations, but so there's mindfulness is not necessarily of the body, and interoception is not necessarily mindful.
mm,
But you bring those together, and I think that's one of the main things that I think that, for example, these body techniques, mind body techniques use, including MBSR, meditation, Alexander work, Feldenkrais, breath work, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, they all integrate mindfulness and interoceptive awareness. And that's a certain attitude within interoceptive awareness.
mm. How
That's
does
mindfulness. Yeah,
yes?
that's you.
Mm. How does your current work as a researcher, medical physician, psychotherapist,
Mhm.
how do you intersect with kind of like the yoga, the breath work, and then with your sort of your medical mind? Yeah, how does it come together? Because if I'm honest, I don't get to speak to, I've interviewed, I know about over 250 academics and pioneers in the field over the last 10 years. I don't get to often speak with someone like you, which has such a beautiful way of holding both the medical model and kind of the sort of more holistic model of health. You seem to hold that at the same time. Can you talk a little bit about right now, how does your work sort of intersect with that because you're a medical doctor as well?
Yeah. Yeah, so my life's topic in clinically is chronic pain. So as I
Yeah.
saw, the last years, I just retired from clinic. I'm 76 and turning 77 this year. So
Wow. You look fantastic, by the way. You don't
yeah,
look
thank you.
70.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So I saw for decades mostly patients with chronic back pain, chronic neck pain, chronic chest pains,
Hmm.
chronic pain patients. The problem with chronic pain is that it's an aversive stimulus from inside the body that you try to avoid because it's unpleasant. So there's an automatic kind of habitual response to this pain by distracting yourself. You don't want to pay attention to something miserable in your body. So, and my experience on my own body and on what I hear from patients and others is that this, and it's shown now scientifically that distracting yourself from chronic pain is not a beneficial mechanism. It helps for acute back pain in the short term. And in the long term, if the pain is totally overwhelming, yeah, of course, you take a pill and you try to get over it. You listen to some music, to read, don't listen to the news. That's probably making it worse. But uh, music or art or something, something, or go for a walk. That is a distracting, that is helpful. But on the long run, it's much more helpful if you can handle focusing on it, on the attention. That, your back pain, in quotation, wants to teach you something.
Mm,
That's how we don't see it. It's an enemy. It's like in this developmental stage, it's the obstacle for
mm,
anything we want to do. So if you don't befriend your body, and even the fact that the body gives you miserable signals, that you abused your body for years. Oh,
mm,
I totally ignored my body for decades and was just in the service of meeting my own expectations and other people's expectations,
mm.
and hurt my body by not taking good care of it. And then you get, and the body at some point says, no, sorry, that's it. You misused me, abused me so long. I give you something pain now. So you gotta work with this. And in chronic pain, what we call now interoceptive exposure in a mindful way, focusing on the body sensations with a curious, non-judgmental, present moment kind of attitude, mindful attitude, can be beneficial for pain if it's not overwhelming. And in chronic pain, you're not usually overwhelmed anymore, and you have your own mechanisms developed. But it's always a gnawing, miserable thing that kind of makes your life not fun.
The quality of a life is affected.
Yes, yeah. And and we I the last studies we did, we tried to find out if focusing on body sensations in a very specific way, on pain in a very specific, it's and same with depression. It's There's a great book called I don't know the title right now, but it's about sensory foraging. You collect sensations when you're depressed, in the beneficial sensations, and in pain you want to really feel and in breathe, and you be present in your pain, and then you can. We did two studies now. It's not controlled, so they're kind of pilot studies. But we just have a follow-up study in the pipeline with the NIH that I'm a co-investigator because I'm now kind of mostly retired. So another researcher picked that up. And so we are doing mindfulness-based pain reduction,
Mm.
kind of where we do yoga that is specific for back pain rather than just for
Anybody.
grounding, where we do pain education rather than stress education, or both, more pain education. And we do interoception with the question, directing the attention in a discernment method. How does your pain actually really feel? What is the three-dimensional space it occupies?
Mm.
Is it, what is the shape? What kind of a shape has your pain? That's a funny question that physicians wouldn't usually ask. How dense is your pain? Does it have a color? That's weird. Is it hot or is it cold? Does it does it have any dynamism? Does it move? Does it change? Does it change when you breathe in or when you breathe out? Typically chronic back pain gets a little better at the end of exhalation, but then you inhale again, it hurts more. So details like this, people not aware of, and discriminating different elements of the pain sensation itself as a method of focusing on the or directing the body into the pain sensation can change the sensation. So they have people have wonderful descriptions of the studies published, what people all of a sudden discover when they sense into the pain in a special mindful way. It's not easy because it's counterintuitive. It's
Yeah.
against the habitual way of dealing with pain. They have to learn, and it takes time, and not everybody can do it, to overcome that habit to get away from your pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still my topic of, I think that's what research has go to. And there's another researcher in Australia who is doing mindful interoceptive exposure therapy,
Mm.
which is pretty much similar. It's just a different setup, but it doesn't have the MBSR frame that we use. And I did a phone app where they try to discern these different elements of the pain sensation itself over 8 weeks. And people wrote very interesting feedback. So that's qualitative and quantitative research. So qualitative is what they experience. What's the phenomenology of your pain in details, which they had never focused on? And then does that change standard measures in pain outcomes?
Hmm. And should I say, am I right in saying the effect size was like
Yeah,
positive? Yeah.
yeah, was
Yeah.
good. Good
Wow.
effects.
Yeah.
It's not, there's so far no control studies, so that's the problem. So
Mm-hmm.
the next step would be, and so I'm a co-investigator in a study that we sent into NIH as an application for a control studies and different centers together, because you need large numbers to show that MBPR with interoceptive exposure might be superior to MBSR without that exposure.
Interesting. Can I just come back to, because you mentioned something very interesting on the elements of pain, for example, color and mobilization
Hey,
and sound
yeah,
and things. What do you think the mechanism is there as you expand out with interoceptive awareness into those elements? Do you think that it stimulates, more, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, potentially more sort of gray matter in the insular cortex, or something
yeah,
else happens, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, there's structural measures like the density or the thickness of the insula,
Mm, 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 mm.
and there's the connectivity is another measure. How how is the default mode network, rumination and thinking going
Yeah.
on how much is being present in your perceptions. So there's a wonderful study that was done at the NIH, intramural study in Bethesda, where they compared yoga people who did yoga for many years with people who hadn't done yoga, and experimental pain, which is a different animal compared to chronic pain, real pain, clinical pain. And they found that people who did yoga for many, many years had an increased insular density
Interesting.
compared to those who didn't. And they had a higher pain threshold, so they could tolerate experimental pain better. And the 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 density of the insular cortex was associated with that pain threshold.
Mm,
And then they asked them, how did they do it phenomenologically when they had the hand in the ice bucket? They paid attention to, now it's cold, yeah, but it's not painful yet. So they felt into the sensations, how it slowly came up. So they were present in their hand, versus the non-yoga people try to distract themselves with good memories from, my last vacation in Hawaii or
mhm.
something. So there's a habitual difference that was in that it's not an explanatory study, it's an associative, it's a
Yeah.
cross-section study. How is the relationship between insular cortex density, pain threshold, and attitude about how you deal with pain? I think that was an incredible study. However, it's not a longitudinal study. It's not proving that paying attention actually helps with pain. So you need longitudinal studies for that. And we we have still also one paper that my colleague at the VA here in San Francisco is spearheading, where we try to see if there's actually brain changes with the attention
Structural.
exercise. Yeah, sexual changes or
Mm.
connectivity changes, either one.
Mm, mm, mm.
So it's still studying. So that's would be the next step work.
In terms of putting longitudinal studies on connectivity as well as structural to see, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, any thoughts about what the MAIA questionnaire reveals about kind of culture and interception with the sort of global world that we're in? Is there
Uh,
anything that you can speak to there?
yeah. There's a published study that we did. So we did the questionnaire. It has been translated in many languages. And then what you do, you validate the questionnaire with psychrometric measures. So there's a scientific way of measuring the quality of a questionnaire. How well does it work? And you can test that translation then in different languages, in different countries. And there was one that didn't work well.
Huh.
That was the Japanese one. Japanese translation lost several subscales, particularly the self-regulation subscale, which was kind of the most important one in some clinical benefit studies. So like when they did meditation studies long term, uh, what changes most with interoceptive awareness in the MAIA scale was the self-regulation was kind of what helped. You can regulate your arousal, your attitudes by listening to your body. That's kind of the attitude. So Japanese didn't work. Uh, they lost lots of items, and so you do these psychrometric evaluations, and I was puzzled. Why does it not work? So we did a focus group with Japanese Americans who had at least lived 5 years as adults in both countries, 5 years in Japan, 5 years in the United States, and asked, what's the issue? So, so it's a qualitative study. We found out that um, there's lots of differences in cultures. For example, the Japanese, they have a very strong, I mean, there's more. It's not the Japanese culture is one block and American culture is there's too much mixing.
Yeah,
But,
we won't generalize.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but there's like one thing is that the Japanese have a sense of personal space. So
Mm.
their body awareness extends like a foot around them. And if you intrude that space, they back off. So that's why they don't hug all the time. They greet each other. Even shaking hands is already going into that space. So you have to kind of ask permission to these culturally uh, uh, people uh, for entering personal space,
Yeah,
which you in South America, tango dancing Argentina, there is no border. You
right,
go
right. There's no
together.
boundary. Yeah.
So, so that was a big difference. And the purpose of interoceptive awareness for us would mostly be in the West would be to improve control, to improve how we, as an individual, deal with challenges in our life, with stress, with our partner being upset with us, and how you calm yourself in difficult situations. In Japan, culturally, historically, culturally, uh, the goal for interoceptive awareness would be how do I best fit in my social context?
Hmm.
So, for example, in the MAIA, we ask, how do you generally do this and that? How do you feel in general? In general, doesn't work in Japan because everything is context dependent. So
Mm,
you, like school children, they're very organized in classroom, they kind of seen as militaristic education. But when they have a break time between classes, they go totally wild. So
mm,
they know in which context they have to be in what behavior. And and everything you can in Japan, well, do you mean in this situation, I behave like this? In that situation, I would behave like this. There's a lot of context dependency that we don't have in the Western psychology. That's, you have a trait. You do this usually this way.
yes.
And usually the MAIA is seen as a trait questionnaire and then doesn't fit with context dependent behavior. Doesn't fit.
Hmm.
So that's a cultural difference. And then the goal of self-regulation in the West, particularly the self-regulation, is to be as an individual, uh, have a better feeling about yourself and about your situation with others and feel better, well-being. And in Japan, they would say, um, if everybody is angry, I don't want to be totally calm. That's not, I feel I want to be in that contextual situation. I want to be part of that
Mm,
social environment. So they have more, I mean, that's a generalization, of course, that is not fitting for every individual, but there's more a goal of integrating in a social context rather than improving your individuality.
hmm, hmm. So what you were saying about sort of just coming back to the brain, that
Mhm,
structural and connectivity changes perhaps
mhm.
is also implicated by cultural context.
Probably, but there's
We
not
don't,
much research, I think, about that
for
cultural
sure.
context, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
good question. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So, just a couple more questions. I know you're retired, semi-retired.
Mm.
Any sort of research interests that you're very excited about right now, interoceptively?
Yeah, it's a pain, the work
It's
with
still the
pain.
pain.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I know that, for example, in the main people in MBCT, so like Zindel Seagull in Canada, um, they 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 emphasize now as well that learning about interoceptive awareness in depression is a helpful element of MBCT. Not they weren't aware of that when they started MBCT. So there is more about that. And the whole um, yeah, my interest also is phenomenology. So like in pain, for example, how does it exactly feel like? And when you deal with it in when you redirect your attention to the body sensations, for example, how do you exactly do that? So there's a method in qualitative research that comes pretty much from France. Uh, it's called microphenomenology,
Mm,
which is a qualitative, mindful way of inquiry into what you're experiencing, that it is more precise than just interview questions in a qualitative interview. So it's kind of a guided way of being present and that you can be present in your body. So that's an additional element that I think is very beneficial for interoceptive awareness is using this microphenomenology interview technique
mm.
in addition to just questionnaires and self-report outcomes and objective measures.
Yes, yes. Final question.
Mhm.
With your qualification as a board certified psychotherapist in Germany, which I know is actually you have to be a medical doctor, I believe, to become a
Well,
psychotherapist.
no, it's the other way around. If you
Oh,
are a medical doctor already,
ah,
it's easy. Because the certification, they think you know already so much about the psychology. You don't have to go through the full training a psychologist goes through.
I see.
But you have to, it took me 9 years in courses and groups and all kinds of stuff to learn that. This is a very specific German method for medical doctors to add a psychotherapy element into their work for psychosomatic.
Yeah.
Great.
With that lens, Dr.
Mhm.
Mehling, how do you see interoception evolving the field of kind of psychotherapy, mental health, from the
Mhm.
research that have been involved in, know about, and where you think things are going?
Well, it feels like it's happening already. It's not because of the questionnaire or because of research necessarily, but there is increasing interest in interoceptive awareness. So, like, for example, the pain management center around the corner, the psychologists there at UCSF here, they all know about interoceptive awareness. They all talk about it. Then there's new programs for pain. They call it reprogramming or reprocessing therapy. That works on interoceptive awareness too. So it's just happening. It's just a human evolution element. I don't know. It's
Mhm.
where the integration of self-awareness becomes more embodied.